Join me today as we pay our respects at our nation's most sacred shrine, Arlington National Cemetery. It is the final resting place of over 400,000 of America's military personnel and families, a number of Supreme Court justices, and 2 presidents. It is a must-see for student tours, and in this series I will show you the cemetery through this lens as we see what they see when I guide them. We will visit the graves of President John F. Kennedy and his brothers, see the changing of the guard at the tomb of the unknown soldier, spend time at the Memorial Amphitheater, investigate individual graves, and walk through its grounds. It is a magical space where even the most quiet of my student groups become filled with curiosity and questions, and I will share what I know with you, as well as give a behind-the-scenes view of the trips. Take a look at the black sign on the way in, the one that says, "Conduct yourself with quiet dignity and respect at all times." Remember, these are hallowed grounds. Now I want to go ahead and replay something from the clip you just saw from the changing of the guard. And this is in regards to foot scrapes. You might have heard the soldiers scraping their feet against the ground. The same way tap dancers have these taps on their shoes. It's the same thing with the tomb guards, and this is to help them keep their step. Now, back in the day, it used to be something of a demerit if they scraped their taps against the ground. This was something that counted against them, the same way if they didn't iron their clothes properly, if they had lint on their clothes, if their sunglasses were crooked, if their posture was a bit off. All of these things are demerits. This does not help your cause any if you're a tomb guard. And it used to be the exact same way when they scraped their feet against the ground. And this was true all the way up until the 1990s. But in recent decades, the perception of scraping your feet against the ground has changed. Basically, what happened was the tomb guards wanted to be able to show their respect to veterans in the crowd. So often veterans will wear baseball hats that will say that they're veterans, or they might be in uniform, or an honor flight comes through. And honor flights are basically trips for veterans where they come to see the memorials. So the tomb guards wanted to show their respect to veterans. But the problem is, their movements are so regimented that they are not allowed to deviate from their movements. So how can you show respect to them when you're not allowed to change your movements at all? And what they started doing was scraping their feet. If they saw someone in the crowd wearing a hat that said they were a veteran, they might scrape their feet as they passed them. Of course, they don't have to, but this is something that changed in time where they were more or less allowed to do this. And I want to replay a couple segments of the changing of the guard clip that you just saw. And this is where they are first coming onto the area in front of the tomb from the Memorial Amphitheater. You will see that there is another soldier there who is basically releasing the chain to let them in. There's a chain to keep the public out, and then the soldier comes up to the chain, and there's another soldier who opens the chain for them to let them in. And this other soldier is more casually dressed. It would seem as if this other soldier were just a normal soldier from the 3rd Infantry and not a tomb guard, but they are in fact tomb guards. They're just not guarding the tomb in this moment, so they are dressed a little more informally. They are basically helping out with the chain. They will tell members of the public to move out of the way, or maybe answer any questions if someone had a question. It's this kind of a thing. So basically what you're going to see is tomb guards scraping their feet right in front of this other tomb guard who is not in the same kind of uniform, and they're showing their respect to this other tomb guard. So this is something of a hidden detail here. So I'll go ahead and show that to you again now. Sometimes after the changing of the guard ceremony, there is something that is called a wreath laying ceremony. This is where members of the public can lay a wreath in honor of the unknown. This needs to be scheduled in advance. You can't just show up with your own wreath and drop it at the tomb. This is definitely a scheduled thing. So sometimes our groups have wreath laying ceremonies. Most of the time they don't, but sometimes they do. And they do not happen at every changing. So for example, the changing we just watched, there was no wreath laying ceremony, and there never is at the 5 o'clock because they want everyone to be leaving the cemetery at that point. But also in the spring, when they are having the changing at every 30 minutes, they do not do it in the middle of the hour. So at the 30-minute mark, they do not do it, only at the top of the hour. And even when it's at the top of the hour, it doesn't always happen. So sometimes our groups get to see the wreath laying ceremony, and other times they don't. And again, sometimes they actually have their own wreath laying ceremony. My next trip coming up next week will have it as well. So I came back yesterday and filmed a wreath laying ceremony, and I will show that to you right now.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The ceremony that you are about to witness is an army wreath-laying ceremony to be conducted in honor of the unknowns. It is requested that everyone remain silent and standing during this ceremony. All military personnel in uniform will render the hand salute, and it is appropriate for all others to place their right hand over their heart upon the command to present arms. Thank you. Order! Order! Remain behind the chains and rails.
So this ceremony seemed to be from a university group, and there was a bugler playing taps. This happens at every wreath laying ceremony. And you may have noticed a green tent in the background. And that green tent serves a variety of functions. One of them is that during wreath laying ceremonies, the sentinel on duty has somewhere to go because the ceremony is conducted by other tomb guards. The tent has a phone in it, and this is nicknamed the Bat Phone. If you think about the old Batman series from the 60s where they had this phone that connected directly to the mayor, this is a line that goes directly to underneath this Memorial Amphitheater where their offices are. In case there's any kinds of emergencies, they can call down and tell them what's going on. More on an everyday basis, it's used mostly to inform about a change in the weather. So if it's been hot out and it's suddenly getting cooler or it's about to rain, they have different uniforms depending on the weather. So that's one thing they use it for. And also in that tent, they have a spray bottle, and they will spray this onto their gloves because they are holding these rifles that have these smooth, polished wooden handles. It can get kind of slippery, so they will spray so that they can get some friction going. You may have also seen at the end that somebody got yelled at, and I told you, people do get yelled at.
Remain behind the chains and rails. Remain behind the chains and rails.